I'd like to call to order the meeting of the Greenwood Advisory Plan Commission, Monday, March 14th. In the absence of Mr. Polar, who's president of the Advisory Plan Commission, I'll be chairing tonight. We'll start off the approval of the minutes. We have a motion for approval. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor, please signify by raising your right hand. All opposed, same sign. Motion passes 8-0. Are there any special requests or continuances? Seeing none, under old business, Mr. Davis has an update on 249 and 514 North Madison Avenue fee appeal.
Yes, at our last meeting, we had a discussion on fee appeal for these two properties, and the board asked for a report to come from the city. And I volunteered to bring that report. So last week on Wednesday, we had a pre-filing meeting for 249 North Madison to get that site plan reviewed and bring that into compliance with the city's zoning standards. Mr. Seal, our building commissioner, has been working with Mr. Crump. He says they're working on satisfying all the building department requirements. Here's the main property, 249 is ready to be permitted. And there's permits in with the state for approval on Unit C, which is the back building. And we're also waiting for an update on the state on the 516 property as well. So it sounds like the permits are in progress and the approvals are sitting at the state. And as mentioned, we'll work on the site plan part of 249.
Okay, that's pretty much what I think we were hoping to hear. Okay, thank you. Is there any old business from the floor? Seeing none, new business. PC 2022-005, Lincoln Place Primary. Lennar Homes is requesting approval of a primary plat for 43.59 acres with 122 lots located at the southeast corner of Bushville Road and Emerson Avenue. This is a public hearing.
So all who are going to speak, either for or against this, must stand and have the oath administered for their testimony.
You swear that this testimony that is true to the best of your knowledge.
I do.
We'll start with 15 minutes. For those in favor of this, then we'll have a 15-minute period for remonstrators. That'll be followed up by a 5-minute rebuttal by those in favor, and then a 5-minute rebuttal for the remonstrators. Who's speaking in favor of this? Please come forward and state your name and address for the record, please.
Yes, good evening, Tony Brigado with Lennar Homes of Indiana. I just have a relatively quick presentation. Our address is 11555 North Meridian Street and Suite 400 in Carmel, Indiana.
Okay.
So before you tonight is a plat of a rezone that was done prior to 2021 by Lennar. Brian Tui was our attorney here for the approval, and it was referred to as Lincoln Place. It's the property that's located on the west side of Emerson Avenue and the south side of Bushville Road, and it's adjacent to the railroad tracks. This was zoned for given two zoning districts. We have an RA for residential attached next to the railroad track to provide a transition into the single family component of residential media. Both of those. Yes. And so again, yeah, it was for 2 zoning districts that got approved. This is the site layout, and it was approved again with an entrance on Bushville Road, shown in the council plan, and one on Emerson Avenue. The home sites actually have 124, it's on the agenda, it says 122, but the zoning that we approved in the plat lays out 124. And that complies with the density standards of both the zones. We show an open percentage of 25%, which is just over 10 acres for this property. And then our density range is 2.84 between the 2 different product types. We are asking for 2 waivers today, one related to street trees and the other for pedestrian connection. With the street trees, the requirement is 1 for every 40 feet. With this site, especially within the attached product, it's too tight to fit in that area. So we're asking for a waiver to move those trees, the requirement, into the common area, and for a maximum of up to 50%, which would be 114 of the 228 required. The other area is pedestrian connection, and the UDO requires, you can see this, there's a black or brown line that shows up pretty faintly. If we were to design according to the UDO, we'd have to have a pedestrian connection through our southern property line, which is an existing tree area. So we'd have to remove those trees, which we prefer to keep. And then also, as you see below, recently Whiteland just approved this concept plan for 200 units. But we have 2 connection substreets there where our road is, and then they only have 1 lot deep for their sidewalk would run back into our neighborhood. So we believe that that should adequately meet the requirement of connecting the 2 ends of the road. And again, preserve the tree line between both our residents and future residents of Whiteland. With that, I was available for any questions or comments.
Handle those afterwards.
Okay.
Is there anybody else speaking in favor? Are there any remonstrators?
Mr. President, I'd like to offer some comments from staff.
Yes, please.
There are 2 waivers requested. And I also want to clarify the 124 on the lots, that's acceptable. So on the street tree provision, with relocating some of the street trees, I want to, I guess, be clear in how we approach this language, this 50%. And I'd like to ask Lennar to be clear about it as well, to make sure that each of the single family not attached homes, each one of those lots receives at least 1 tree. And that on the attached product, that we're not having more than 2 consecutive lots with no street trees, such that we don't end up with saying, well, we put the 50% of the trees, in the single family product. So now all the street trees for the multifamily, not multifamily, but the attached product. So we're relocating all of those to common area. So we want to be sure that we, in allowing the relocation, we are ensuring that we end up with trees throughout the neighborhood. Is essentially what I'm saying. The waiver on the trail system for that southern common area, staff does support this waiver. This will connect to the neighborhood to the south. There are sidewalk connections at the east and west ends of it. There's just nothing through the middle of that common area, and that common area is somewhat narrow. So we do support that. I do want to make clarification on street trees. Thank you.
Okay. We'll get back at the end. Is there anybody else speaking in favor? If not, remonstrators. Are there any remonstrators for this project? Yes, please come forward. Were you sworn in?
Yes.
Okay. Please come forward, state your name and address for the record.
Good evening. I am Suzanne Rowe Carlson, and I own the property SRC Enterprises, which in the map that was presented is the corner properties. There's 2 of them. I just have a question. If this meeting is only regarding trees, or that is the only point to be brought up, I would like to bring up that we have been approached for the purchase of 55 feet of frontage from our west boundary to our east boundary, which would border Emerson. But the fee that Lennar had offered is not consistent. It also requires 55 feet, not from the center of the street, but from the side of the street. And if that would be a requirement, it brings that land within about 4 feet of the top of the arc of the circular driveway. So I don't know if this is the right time or place. I am a concerned homeowner. We do own those properties. They're part of our retirement. I am 68. I'd like to retire at some point. I'd like to be fair to Lennar, but I also don't feel like that land should be taken for right of way. If there's something else that can be done or some other method that could happen. Any questions?
Okay, thank you. We'll have the
Thank you.
Lennar folks respond. For clarification, are you talking about the two pieces of property that both front
There's
to the east, and only one is up on,
there's one on Bushville and one directly
Bushville.
behind it.
and then there's two on, okay,
2.52 acres.
okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Anybody else as a demonstrator? Reply?
Yes, for the road widening, that's something we've been discussing with the staff, the requirements for road improvements. So as part of that, we're requested to make adequate, offers to the residents for the right of way. It won't be done through a taking, so if she's not willing to sell that land for right of way, we'd have to continue to work with the city staff to figure out an alternative design. If that's not possible, it just may not happen, and we'd have to work out some kind of alternative plan for that. But there would be nothing that takes her property. She has to be willing to participate in that for us to buy it. Now, down the road, the city can always go through the process of eminent domain if they felt it was needed, but that's not something we've discussed. The city's been reluctant to want to pursue that on anything like this, so.
Okay. What was the question only regarding trees?
Yeah, from the tree standpoint, I mean, it's definitely something we're committed to try to work on. I guess we would only concern with depending on utilities, sometimes with every home site, depending on how tight it is, but we'll definitely work to try to get that done. And we'll communicate with Dale or staff otherwise and have to be back if we can't meet that, but we'll definitely plan on that.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Thank you.
And I do want to add, just from the staff standpoint on the road widening. Greenwood does not have impact fees like other communities do. So lots of times with these developments, when we look at them, we look at that traffic impact. And we see what are those nearby intersections, what does the additional homes, the additional traffic, what does that do? In this case, improvements aren't needed at Bushville to make that intersection safer. So
Is that a right turn lane?
Kevin, what all were we adding at that location? I can't remember off the top of my head.
Kevin Sumner with Y Engineers, 10505 North College Avenue, Minneapolis, Indiana. So at that intersection, we were doing some sanitary, and then really, I think it was the shoulder and the big widening. So that, I think that curve right there.
Yeah, we definitely widen the radius there at the corner too. There's some necessary improvements to get the lane widths and to be correct. I mean, there's very little, if any, shoulder in that location. So this will allow us to get us up to what the city considers the design standard.
Thank you. As far as the demonstrators, anything on the rebuttal?
I guess I'd like to say that that's also the corner of our property. So I don't want anything to affect the value of when we go to sell that property. So if you're taking for the corner to turn right and then you're taking 55 feet back, I mean, it has a detrimental effect on the property value. So I would just like that addressed, please.
Okay. So Dale, this is something that would be negotiated with the homeowner if you don't reach it?
So at this point, the negotiation is between Lennar and our property owners. In the future, if these improvements are not made and this becomes a safety issue, the city may have to undertake it of themselves. That said, the city has a lot of projects ahead of us where this would fall in the priority. I do not have that information.
Okay.
But if either of these properties was developed into something else, I'm double checking right now, neither of them is platted. So they would be required to go through a platting process, and that right of way would be dedicated to the city at that time. Sidewalks would be installed. I mean, it would be built like any other residential or commercial product.
Any other new plat.
Not knowing what we're talking about in the future, but it would have to go through the same process as Lennar is, or as any other commercial developer would. So that center line right of way there, that would be the same grant in the future as it is today. It must be amended ordinance, and it could possibly be wider.
Thank you. Anything else on the demonstrator? If not, close public hearing. Any questions by commission?
I have a question.
Yes.
So you were just referring to the two properties, or two properties that have to be platted? That you're referring to?
Yes,
That's
so.
not bad, I didn't know them or they.
No, I'm talking about our property owners here, our adjacent property owners, SRC Enterprises. So their properties are on the hard corner, two fronting Emerson, one fronting Bushville. And as I mentioned, they're not platted lots. If something was to be developed there, they would need to become platted lots.
And follow all of the.
That house could continue, being a house as it is in perpetuity. But that said, if improvements were needed at that corner, the city would have to obtain the necessary right of way at that time.
Anybody else? Well, in that case, before I ask for a motion, I think we have a message from our sponsor, our legal sponsor.
A reminder, because this is a primary plat, it is a ministerial act. So if it meets the requirements of the subdivisions, division of your uniform development ordinance, it must be approved. If you do not approve it, you have to specifically set forth those portions of the subdivision requirements that it does not meet. And we will bring that back to the next meeting for adoption, with specific written finding.
Thank you. The first motion would be for the landscaping and buffering regulations.
And we'll have to add the addition that Mr. Davis recommended about trees, that he wants all the single family, not attached homes to have at least one tree, and residential attached no more
No
than,
fewer.
no fewer than,
Every other.
two consecutive lots with no tree, no street trees.
Essentially saying every third lot would have to have a tree.
On the attached.
Yes.
Okay, the motion prepared.
Just one that I invest that tree. That far out.
We'll get through that.
Mr. Chairman, I move that the request of Lennar Homes of Indiana Incorporated for a waiver of the requirements of the Unified Development Ordinance, Greenwood Municipal Code, Chapter 10, Article 25, Division 3, Generally Applicable Regulations, Section 10-03-06, Landscaping and Buffering, H, Streetscaping, that specifies planting one tree per 40 lineal feet of frontage, to permit planting 50% of the required street trees in common areas around the project per plan commission staff direction and review, to avoid placement conflicts with driveway and utility locations. Be approved,
Provided
provided it follows the
all single family, not attached homes have at least one tree on the street frontage, and one in every 3 residential attached lots shall have a street tree.
With no more than 2 consecutive lots without.
Without.
Yes, all of that.
all of that be approved. And the planning commission find that Lennar Homes of Indiana Incorporated has met the criteria set forth by Greenwood Municipal Code Section 10-04-03K for the waiver for the reasons set forth in its request for the waiver and as presented.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second. I don't know who was first.
Monica will throw it your way.
Okay.
We have a motion and a second. Any last questions or anything? Not all those in favor of this motion, please signify by showing your right hand. All opposed, same sign, 8-0. We also have. Oh, you already did that. A motion for the waiver from the internal trail system requirement. Accept the motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move that the request of Y Engineers on behalf of Lennar Homes for a waiver from the Unified Development Ordinance, Chapter 10, Article 25, Division 6, Subdivisions, Section 10-06-10, Trail Systems, A, which requires an internal trail system within the subdivision to link common areas with the public sidewalk system and to link to perimeter or abutting regional trails to permit no trail through common area F to preserve the mature tree line buffer to the development to the south be approved. And that the Planning Commission find that the criteria set forth by Green Municipal Code 10-04-03K for the approval of the waiver has been met for the reasons set forth in the applicant's written waiver request and as presented by applicant's representative.
Motion, Mr. King, is there a second? Mr. Walker has a second. Any questions on it? Not all those in favor, please signify by showing your right hand. All opposed, same sign. Motion passes 8-0. Now, we also have a motion to approve the primary plat.
I move to approve the proposed primary plat of Lincoln Place residential subdivision submitted by Y Engineers on behalf of Lennar Homes, docket number PC 2022-005, because the primary plat with approved waivers complies with the standards in the subdivisions division of the Unified Development Ordinance, and to direct the president to sign in the commission's behalf the notice of determination and written findings regarding the approval of the primary plat as prepared by the planning director.
Need a motion, is there a second?
Second.
Ms. Gardner? Any questions regarding the motion? Not all in favor, please signify by showing your right hand. All opposed, same sign. Motion passes 8-0. Okay, is there any new business from the floor? Seeing none. Are there any announcements?
We do not have business at the meeting on the 28th, so we will be canceling that.
Have you do 2 in a row? Huh? No business on the 28th.
Want to make a motion to cancel the meeting because there's no business like we did with the BCA or just a.
I was just gonna say we're canceling because there's no.
If you show up, you're on your own. Hey, need one more motion.
Move to close the meeting.
Motion to adjourn by Mr. Walker. All right.